Okay, so let me explain this in a little more detail as to what's going on. These scores don't matter. They're just guidelines. Google does not, for search engine purposes, does not look at these. Your desktop and your mobile. They're good guidelines. That helps developers, excuse me, and performance people like myself to kind of see what is slowing the website down, like reduce initial server response time. So if you go to your waterfall chart, so this is a waterfall chart. These are all the things that are loading on your website. So this is some old font stuff, TTF. So you can see it's taking under a tenth of a millisecond to load. Some CSS is taking 0.3, so under a millisecond, under 100 milliseconds to load. So that's less than a tenth of a second. So all these lines are really good. You have a lot of really short lines here. See, this is all really, really good. I mean, it's actually about as short as I've seen them. Your problem right here, this is called time to first byte. Before anything even happens, the server is just waiting. So that could be your hosting provider, which I doubt it is because that's a really good hosting provider. So that's something we'd have to dig into. So everything's loading pretty good, it looks like. It's just waiting before anything processes. There's this huge delay up front. So you can see this is loading the HTML. Processing the HTML is this light blue line. So something's going on there. So you can see this is the DNS request. This is the SSL handshake, blah, blah, blah. So I don't know how familiar you are with that. So just to show you, I just did these 3 popular websites. So eBay, 61, right? And you thought if this would be a huge deal, you would think eBay would score 100, right? Amazon, 41. 77 on desktop. 5 for Verizon.com. So this doesn't matter. What matters, now there are good suggestions that I would need to dig into. That's the first one. Reduce initial server response time. Eliminate render blocking resources. So this means there's dependencies. So JavaScript B can't load before A is done, but A may have to go before B. So you have to just sort all this out and determine you're just going to have some render blocking stuff. Generally, that's just the way it is. And of course, this one does it just as I say that. So every website's a little bit different. Let me just see. Yeah, here it's yellow here. So you have more. So we can use tools to determine. Hopefully, we can. If there's some script that's loading or some CSS that's loading up top that doesn't need to be loaded. Let's say this piece of CSS. Is this your website here? You can see this. This means it's render blocking this X. They just actually added that like last week. So it's blocking. So that's a bottleneck. Maybe this piece of CSS doesn't need to load until down here, right? So that's something you could look at. Unused JavaScript, blah, blah. So to give you an idea, don't get hung up on this. What does matter is if you search for core web vitals. This is a standard they've been proposing for about a year or so now. This is what Google's going to use to determine site speed. In web page test, these are up here, right? So you're red, green, red. So your website might load totally fast, but you still might get a red, green, red. Now, this looks really bad, red, green, red, but not all sites can get green, green, green. And I wish I would have done Verizon, Amazon, just like I did here, but you'd see kind of the same thing. The reason is you're not hand coding this. You're reliant on how well these plugin developers have coded their plugins. So there's a lot we can do, but I just kind of wanted to give you an understanding of where I'm coming from. But these, you need to focus on how long it actually takes to load, like when you count in your head, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 2 seconds, whatever. And then see if you can get these scores down. Now, Google has said, don't waste much time on these. These are really low type ranking signals. So if your website's loading 6 seconds, now this is a synthetic test, so this isn't accurate. If you go to it, it takes like 3 seconds, right? So don't take all of this with a grain of salt. But if you're coming down from 20 seconds to 5 seconds, that's a big difference, and that's going to affect your Google ranking. If you're going from 3 seconds to 2 seconds, that's really insignificant, and it's not going to matter. So hopefully this makes sense. If you want to proceed, I can look around, but your website loads pretty fast. But should be able to work on these scores, and there's things we can do, but I wanted to give you an idea what's going on.